Where to start with Andrew Davis? He's been described as theatrical, dazzling, manic, and inspiring. And I've spoken to him this morning, and I understand that he does all those things at the same time. He's a big thinker. He's an innovator who sees opportunity at every turn. He's an internationally acclaimed speaker who has been known to go way past his allotted time slot at the encouragement of his audience. That won't be happening tonight, or this morning. Hope he's not still going tonight. That won't be happening today. But speaking to groups like ours isn't the only thing that Drew does. Drew's 20-year career has taken him from local television to the Today Show. He's worked for the Muppets in New York. He's marketed for tiny startups and Fortune 500 brands. His latest book, Brandscaping, Unleashing the Power of Partnerships, is an Amazon bestseller. For 12 years, Andrew acted as the chief strategy officer at Tipping Point Labs, a company he co-founded and has since sold. Andrew and the Tipping Point Labs team have helped companies like Putnam Investments and TomTom. They've built digital strategies for publishers like Rodale and Meredith. He's led the charge to change the way publishers think and how brands market their products in a digital world for more than a decade. We've invited Drew here to help us reshape the way we think, to help us navigate the vast and sometimes confusing digital landscape, to inspire us to rethink our digital strategy. Please join me in welcoming Andrew Davis.
Yay. All right. Thank you, Terry. So nice. Thank you. I didn't realize you were so famous when we were chatting. But I'm like, now I'm in awe. Okay, I'm very excited to talk about unconventional media this morning, but I actually woke up at 3:30 in the morning and realized it's 2016. Have you guys had that moment? Yeah. It was like, wait, what happened to 2015? I'm a little confused. I just got back from Houston, Texas, and I had lunch with a really genius publisher, a woman named Carolyn Nuttall, and she just sold her magazine last year. And she went on what she called a listening tour. She went around the country in the United States. She actually went to Italy. She went to France. She went around the world asking people what their media regrets were. And she sat down with lots and lots of smart people. One of the people she sat down with was a guy who founded a company called Rotten Tomatoes. Raise your hand if you do not know Rotten Tomatoes. Somebody next to you will tell you what it's a movie review site. And the guy's name is actually Sen Dong. Sen Dong founded Rotten Tomatoes in 1998, and he sold it in 2004 for an undisclosed amount. It's reported to be maybe around $10 million, okay? And IDG then sold it to Warner Brothers, and it's gone through a number of hands. It's now part of Flickster, okay? But Sen really believed that he started a media company. And when Caroline said, well, what are your media regrets? His only regret was that he thought like a media company. He believed that he had the user base to beat Netflix, to beat iTunes, to beat Apple at better recommendations if he had started streaming media. And instead of thinking like a media company, he should have thought like a company. Have you been to a marketing conference recently where somebody said, every company should be a media company? Have you heard that? Nod your heads. I had a lot of coffee this morning. Raise your hand if you have not heard that. Okay, well, you will go to a conference this year where someone says every company is going to become a media company, which leads me to wonder, what about media companies? Are they going to be companies? Where does that leave us? And I want you to think over the next few minutes while we go through this presentation about what it means to be a company, not just a media company. And we have a lot of challenges in front of us. I mean, look, we live in an information overload world, right? And information overload happens to be a paradox. Just because there is more information available does not mean one can consume more. Does that make sense? Just because there's more information available does not mean one can consume more. And when I say more information, I mean a lot more information. There are 17 new web pages published every single second. That's 17, 34, 51, I need my cheat sheet, 68, 85 web pages. We just crapped out 85 web pages that somebody is supposed to consume. We are contributing to information overload. And I want you to think about what it looks like from a historic perspective. This is information overload. We're looking at 1950 to today and the amount of information on a relative scale, okay? And the black line is the information one can actually consume, all right? The gray line. The black line is the perceived amount of information available, okay? And in 1950, there wasn't a big gap between those two, right? You had your favorite radio station. There were 2 other radio stations you could listen to, but you didn't. You had your favorite television station when TV came along. You had your favorite programs on 3 channels, 2 channels. And then all of a sudden in the 1990s, there's this content explosion, and the cable television revolution comes around. And in the US, we got everything just coming in our face. This is when people were like, I don't know if we can consume two television networks with news. And then there was CNBC and MSNBC and Fox News. Then there was ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Classic, ESPNU. Then there was CNN, CNN International, CNN Headline News, shorter news for news that we don't want to watch. This just kept going, right? And all of a sudden the gap widened. And today it's a hockey stick, right? There's a giant gap between the amount of information we think is available and the amount of information we can actually consume. And most of us are chasing this, the perceived opportunity, trying to shove ourselves into the content that we want people to consume and hoping, this is chasing the social stream. The real opportunity is to really focus on quality over quantity, having a real relationship with information people actually want to consume on a regular basis. And I think the companies that are doing this really well are fitting into the information we actually want to consume. They're building a valuable relationship with a very specific audience on a regular basis. I want you to start thinking about fitting into the information one actually wants to consume. Do not contribute to information overload. All right? That's the one thing we've got to talk about today. Are you guys getting dizzy? Am I going too fast in Prezi? It's going to get faster. There's 210 more moves. You'll be all right. Let's talk about the new world view I think we have to embrace. In the old days, whether you're a media company or a company, didn't matter, and you were going to create an online presence, you created the Ptolemaic model of your online universe. Do you guys remember Ptolemy? Raise your hand if you don't remember Ptolemy. It's okay. Okay, good. Okay, thank you for being honest. Ptolemy was a 2nd century astrologer who believed that the earth was the center of the universe, that everything revolved around the earth. And when we created our first websites, our first content platforms online, this is how we thought. We're going to create www.whatever.com, and we're the center of the universe. People will just come to us, and then they'll get all this stuff, then they'll go away. This is how that's a Ptolemaic model of the online universe. Everything will revolve around us. That has changed. And we've got to change our strategy to meet those changes. We have to embrace the Galilean model of the universe. Raise your hand if you do not remember Galileo. Okay, all right, good. All right, you guys have a great education system. The Galilean model. This is the Galilean model of the online universe. And what's at the center of the Galilean model of the universe in the online world? What is? You can yell it out. Google, the Googs, right? That's the sun. Everything is rotating around the sun. And think about your audience's everyday experience. They are going to the planets that are closest, that are biggest, that are rotating near their sun. So what is that? Oh, they're checking their Gmail, they're on YouTube, YouTubing crap, they're on Facebook, Facebooking junk, they're on CNBC watching news, tweeting, they're stumbling upon, they're LinkedIning, they're Amazoning, they're blogging, they're digging, they're iTunesing, they're WordPressing, they're eBaying, they're diggiting, they're Redditing, they're whatever editing, right? Where are you in this universe? You're way the hell out here in the middle of nowhere, right? You're like Pluto. You're past Pluto. We have to embrace the Galilean model of the universe. We have to get closer and closer to our clients' and customers' everyday experiences, our audience's everyday experience. So I want you to start asking yourself, when you put together your strategy for 2016 and beyond, I want you to think about, are you a Galileo or are you a Ptolemy? How are you embracing the idea that we can get closer and closer to the center of our audience's everyday experience? And the third thing I want you to think about when it comes to reinventing media companies, which are just companies, maybe, is thinking about CMO pizza. Now, I grew up in Houston, Texas, and in 1985, I was on the swim team, and we went to this Pizza Hut every swim meet, before the swim meet, to carbo load. This is not advisable. I don't know whose idea this was. It's an idiotic idea, but we would eat a ton of pizza and then go to a swim meet. We were not a good swim team, anyway. I was standing in line at this Pizza Hut with a bunch of my swim mate buddies, and there's a woman in front of me in line, and she says, hey, can I please have a large pizza and a Diet Coke? And the guy behind the counter says, sure, absolutely, I can get you a large pizza and a Diet Coke. How many slices would you like that pizza cut into, 8 or 10? And she says, 8. I could never eat 10. And all of a sudden, start thinking, this is what the media business looks like today. It's that exact same problem. The marketing pie, the dollars to spend on buying advertising or media today isn't getting any bigger. It's just getting sliced more and more ways. If you go back 10 or 15 years and look at the way an average CMO sliced their pizza pie for their CMO budget, it maybe had 3, 4, 5 slices. It was pretty simple. You had your promotions, you maybe had some events and trade shows, you had some advertising, some PR, and then all of a sudden the web comes around and we're like, oh, well, you need an interactive budget. Their pie doesn't get any bigger, it just gets sliced, right? And then people are like, well, now you need SEO. What the hell is that? I don't know, take it out of advertising, I think, or PR, maybe, okay. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a second, you need a social media strategy. Where do I get the budget for this? This keeps happening over and over again. And now there are new fancy things like native advertising. And the same thing is happening. We have to teach people what native advertising is, and then they've got to find it in their budget and slice another slice. The pie isn't getting bigger, people. We're just slicing it more ways. Advertisers are buying more, but we're getting paid less. We're doing more and getting paid less. I want you to start thinking all today, when we're talking about the digital dialogue panels, the wonderful people that are coming up, I want you to think about the difference between revenue streams and revenue models. I want you to start thinking about the underpinning revenue model that drives your media business. Now, traditionally, we had 2 revenue models, right? One, we will charge advertisers or companies for access to the audience, or we will charge our audience for access to content or media we create. Is there a third model? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I have some ideas, but I want you to start coming up with your own ideas. What does that look like if we start rethinking this? I'm going to share with you a bunch of unconventional media companies, companies you might even question whether they're media companies themselves. But what I find interesting about these companies is they don't think of themselves as first a media company. They think of themselves as a company. And all of them have done one thing. They've combated information overload, they've built media brands in a Galilean world, and they've reinvented their revenue models by creating content brands. Now, this is a distinction between content brands and branded content. And hopefully, by the end of this presentation, you see the distinction. But I define it as a strategically packaged media that inspires demand by building a relationship with a valuable audience. And it allows you to do something really interesting, which is extend the value chain. As media companies, we're really interested in getting people to consume our media one piece at a time. And after they consume the media, they're never sure what to do next. We have to start adding opportunities down the value chain. Let me show you what this looks like. This is a story of a woman named Lauren Luke, okay? And Lauren Luke in 2007 was a taxi cab dispatcher in London. And basically that was her night job. That's how she was making money. So every night she'd go to her job, and in the morning she had a few extra hours where she wanted to make some additional cash. And she had this genius idea. She would buy some surplus makeup supplies, and then she would resell them on eBay. So she sets up this amazing eBay store. She puts up all her products. She goes to work, comes back every morning, checks her sales, and there's 0. And there's 0. For weeks, for months, there's 0. And eventually she realizes, you know what, I don't know anyone who wants to buy these makeup supplies. Who should buy these makeup supplies? And she decides, I want to go after someone who changes their makeup very frequently. Now, my wife, Elizabeth, is a wonderful woman. She's my age. She's 40. Hopefully she's not watching this web stream. Hey, babe. But she hasn't changed her makeup style since I met her 15 years ago, right? So if you're going to sell makeup supplies, you've got to find someone who's interested in changing their makeup more often than that. So she decides she's going to go after teenage girls, 15 to 18, 21 maybe, that want to change their look very frequently. And she goes online and says, I'm going to build an audience of women who would want this. And she goes to YouTube. And on YouTube, she starts uploading once a week a show she calls Lauren Luke's Looks. Now that's the content brand, Lauren Luke's Looks. And she does one celebrity-inspired makeup tutorial every single week. Every Thursday it comes out like clockwork. Let me play just a little bit of one of her most popular early Lauren Luke's Looks videos, okay?
Hi everyone, I'm going to do a Britney Spears toxic look, the one where she's got the red hair, and I've been getting a load of requests for this one, so we're going to get this one done. First of all, I prime my eyelid with a little bit of lemonade by Benefit, and I'm going to start.
Okay, this thing is 10 minutes long. I obviously have ADD. I can't stick it out with you guys, but you're welcome to watch the 10-minute tutorial. Now, she's no supermodel, right? This isn't beautifully lit. It's very simple, celebrity-inspired makeup tutorials. This one's the Britney Spears toxic video. Guys, you remember that one? No? Okay, I do. But the eye makeup was very popular, and she starts building this audience. All of a sudden, within months, she has a massive online presence on YouTube. 500,000 subscribers to her channel are now watching every one of the videos she puts out every single Thursday. And this is more than any other traditional makeup brand in the world, especially at the time. And she still is selling 0 makeup supplies on eBay. Finally, she decides, you know what these people want? They've built a relationship with me. They want something special from me. So she takes all her surplus makeup supplies that she bought. She has them stamped with a new logo that says, by Lauren Luke. And she starts selling her own makeup brand, by Lauren Luke. Now, by Lauren Luke is starting to sell. She says at the end of a video, if you want something, check out my new makeup brand, here's the website, and all of a sudden sales are rolling in, and the people are loving it. These teenage girls are eating up the videos and now buying the stuff because they trust Lauren Luke. And next thing you know, Sephora calls and says, hey, we would love to carry your product in Sephora stores around the world. And she goes on an international tour to meet her fans. People wait for hours outside of Sephora stores to meet Lauren Luke and then hug her and tell her how much of an impact they've made on her life and buy some of her makeup supplies. She also has a line of best-selling books. What are they called? Lauren Luke's Looks. What are they? They're the most popular makeup tutorials from the year put into a print form. It's a print book from a digital platform. I believe that the future of digital content like this is print. It's all of a sudden an extension of a great content brand, and people buy these books. Lauren Luke's brand today is worth $100 million. Lauren Luke's brand is worth $100 million. And it makes me ask these kinds of questions. Is Lauren Luke's Looks a media brand that sells makeup or a makeup brand that makes media? I don't know. She writes a ton of content online today. She has a huge nonprofit that's dedicated to domestic violence. She is a media company that sells makeup, if I have to pick. But I want you to start asking yourself these same kinds of questions. Now, Lauren Luke's Looks is a content brand, okay? It is not branded content. I think she started with the audience first, created great content, added value, and that's what built her business. We need to think like Lauren Luke. We need to create content brands that harness the power of a simple subscription, an appointment with the audience every Thursday to create this kind of content. Look, we live in an opt-in world. If you want to get closer and closer to your audience, we can do it. All of those logos are synonyms for follow, for subscribe, for fan, whatever it is. I want you to start thinking like Lauren Luke. And when I asked Lauren Luke, would you rather have 1 million new views or 10 new subscribers? She didn't even blink an eye. She said, I want the 10 new subscribers. And when I said why, she said this: a subscription allows you to build a relationship with an audience before they need you or so they need you. That is powerful. Lauren Luke understood that the media she created inspired demand for a product in the marketplace, and she fulfilled that need. She understood what the audience wanted. Instead of giving the data to another company and selling space in her show, she answered their call for stuff. Content brands, like Lauren Luke's looks, builds relationships. Those relationships build trust, and trust drives revenue. That's why people are wandering around saying every company is a media company. I want you to think like Lauren Luke. I want you to embrace the idea that you can harness the power of a subscription. What if we valued long-term relationships over views or impressions or likes? How can we harness this power and use it so that we're actually a company, not just a media company? Are you guys doing okay? You sure? I'm a little worried because you're quiet this morning. I need some, I was about to say coffee. I need water. Hold on. All right, so how do you do this? How do you create a content brand? Well, I come out of the television business, so I think you have to think like a television executive and a talent agent combined, okay? And I want you to challenge yourself to start thinking this way. Now, Terry gave you a nice overview of where I came from. I worked in the television world straight out of college. I produced for NBC, for the Today Show in the US, and for CNBC. I produced a show called Knock First for ABC Family, which was terrible, by the way. Don't look it up online. So I'm very embarrassed about it. But I did pitch that show. It was a concept I came up with. And then I got my dream job working for the Muppets for the Jim Henson Company in New York. And I had wanted to work there. I wrote letters once a month and FedExed them to someone at the Jim Henson Company for 3 years before they hired me. That's how bad I wanted to work there. And when I finally got the job there, I was really excited to be in charge of the production workshop where they made the puppets for all the movies and television shows. So I worked on Sesame Street and Muppets from Space. Anyone remember that crappy movie? That's not very good. I worked on Elmo and Grouchland, which might be even worse than Muppets from Space. So I didn't have a great track record until they gave me a really big project, Bear in the Big Blue House. And this was actually the first show that I was in control of the budget for. And they handed me a budget report on like the second day of the job and said, you know, can you tell us how we can fix this budget overage? And I'm looking at the report, and we're $500,000 over budget for the entire season, but we haven't shot an episode yet. And I'm like, sure, I'll take a stab at it. So I come up with this plan. You know, I'm staying awake at night. I go to the first big production meeting, and there's Sony executives and Disney executives, and you know, children of the Henson family are there, and the Jim Henson companies. I'm very nervous. It's my first big meeting with these people. They're going around, and everyone's in their status report is doing great on Bear in the Big. Then they get to me, and I'm like, well, we're kind of in trouble. We're 500, and they're like, oh, that's all right. You'll fix it, Andrew. And I'm like, well, do you want to hear the plan? And they're like, nah, no need for the plan. Thanks so much. And they didn't really seem to care. So I went into this doldrum for the next 2 weeks wondering how I'm going to fix this if no one really cares. And I end up having a meeting with the two people that ran merchandising and licensing at the Jim Henson Company. These are the two smartest women at the company. They were geniuses. And they sat down and said, look, your $500,000 overage isn't a big deal. If it gets to 10, 15 million, you should definitely call us. But if I don't want you to affect the quality of the content we create. Now, raise your hand if you've seen a show called The Wubblest World of Dr. Seuss. Exactly. No one raised their hand. That show was the brainchild of really smart people at the Jim Henson Company, but they had an overzealous production manager who wanted them on budget and on time and on schedule for everything. So what happened? The quality of the content suffered so bad that no one wanted to even air the show. They canceled the show immediately, and it went into the archives of never to be seen again. So they told me, look, don't affect the quality of the content. And when Bear in the Big Blue House came out, they sold 80 million units of this interactive toy. It is neither interactive and it's not much of a toy, okay? That is where they made up for my budget overage. The Jim Henson Company understands this. I own a Grover plush doll. There is no need for a Grover plush doll unless you fall in love with Grover, right? I can do a Grover imitation. You ready? Near, far, near. That's it. That's how much I love Grover. Hey, thank you. I got 3 people clapping for my Grover imitation. I'll keep working on it. You can actually go to a store, buy all sorts of Sesame Street branded products, right? You can have a Sesame Street themed birthday party. You can buy the hats and the kazoos and the balloons and the tablecloths. You can buy chairs. You can buy everything Sesame Street. In fact, if you go to Amazon.com.ca, today, you will find 24,000 branded products from the Sesame Street brand. That is how they make their money. The Jim Henson Company innately understood that they are a company, not just a media company. Here is the thing. Nothing has fueled our consumer culture more than the content brands we love. Valuable content inspires people to buy something they didn't know they need, to take action, to get involved in ways they've never expected. We do that already. Let me show you a quick example that I also learned in the kids' television and film business. Is there anyone who hasn't seen Finding Nemo? Raise your hand. I'll sit with you at lunch. We'll watch it. You too, at my lunch table. Finding Nemo is an amazing story, unbelievably beautiful content. It did $868 million at the box office, almost $1 billion at the box office. It is still the best-selling DVD of all time because no one's buying DVDs anymore. So that's a good party fact, by the way. Finding Nemo is amazingly good content, and I took my niece 6 weeks after she saw Finding Nemo to a pet store on a rainy day in Miami, and she stood next to every single fish tank asking me if that was a Nemo, if she could bring home a Nemo. I want a Nemo. Is that a Nemo? That's a Nemo. I want a Nemo. So what did I do as a good uncle? I brought home a Nemo for them to take care of. Because how do you say no to that face? Right? That's impossible. This is the power of great content. It inspires people to buy stuff they didn't know they needed. And in fact, there's a name for this. It is called the Nemo effect. Finding Nemo decimated the global population of clownfish. That's how inspiring the content was. People wanted to buy a Nemo. And it doesn't just sell Nemos, right? It sells fish tanks, it sells food, you gotta buy the rocks for the bottom, the bubbly thing. Your $4.99 clownfish is now an $800 purchase. It's a genius model. And it doesn't just sell clownfish. In fact, a lot of the characters in the movie saw this giant uptick in people wanting turtles and Chinese fighting fish. And actually, goldfish sales went through the roof. Why? Because we're mean parents. If you couldn't find a clownfish, you would buy a goldfish and say the stripes come in later. That's how mean we were. This isn't the first time Disney did it. They did it with 101 Dalmatians. They created an adoption crisis in 1961. People saw an animated movie and said, I want to bring home a Dalmatian. And when they brought it home and started to raise it, they found out that they make terrible pets. They're hard to manage. And they took them back and said, this is not like the movie. This is the power of great content. It inspires people to buy stuff they didn't know they needed. This is actually Google Trends. Raise your hand if you use Google Trends. Raise your hand high. Raise your hand if you use it every week. Keep it up. Every day. Those are the smartest people in the room. You sit with them at lunch. This is the most underutilized media tool in the world, and it's free. You're actually looking at the demand for clownfish. 1 year after the release, in 2003, it was at 100% demand, okay? We can talk about this at lunch if you have questions. You can see the demand fall down, and then it looks like it's cyclical, and then they release the DVD version. Oh, and everybody wants a clownfish again. And there's fish tank manufacturers in Ontario going, whoa, this is crazy. It's all of a sudden, it's like 2003 again. I want you to start embracing this idea that valuable content increases demand for products and services in the marketplace. And if we want to be more than a media company, we could be a company that takes advantage of these ideas. I want you to start thinking about a rising tide that lifts all ships. It didn't just sell clownfish. People bought fish tanks and all the other stuff. How can we actually build a business model that rewards us for the activity our content inspires? We are not rewarded for the impact we have in the marketplace, and we have an opportunity to start changing that. 2016 has to be a year of no regrets. I want you to start thinking like that. All right, another drink of water. Sorry, must be all that coffee. I don't know. All right, let's go through 4 unconventional secrets that I hope you can embrace and think through today, even talk about with your partners and friends here, that might help you create content brands that drive new kinds of revenue, that challenge you and force you to think about new revenue models that might pave the way for a future that looks very different than today. All right, secret number 1, you have to get riche by targeting a niche. That's the Canadian way to say it. Because in the US, we say, get rich by targeting a niche. You have to get riche by targeting a niche, all right? Now, I think this is counterintuitive for most media companies because we sell reach. We sell a volume of people a lot of times, especially if our model is based on advertising. I call this fractal marketing, okay? If you don't know what a fractal is, that's okay. It's a self-similar repeating pattern, and they happen in nature all the time. So you can actually crop and rotate this picture of the bubbles. It's like infinity, and you wouldn't have known that it was a different picture than the first one I showed you. That's a fractal. It's a mathematical term, but let me show you what it looks like practically, okay? This is a fractal tree where they've divided and subdivided the audience to find a valuable audience that drives actual revenue. And this is from a brand standpoint with a media company at the end. So I want you to follow along with me. The first big trunk of the tree, the audience you would think that this company, Tractor Supply, goes after is farmers. Now, if you don't know Tractor Supply, it's okay. It's an American, it's like the Walmart of the agricultural world, okay? It's a giant store that sells all sorts of everything from fences. You can walk in and buy a tractor and a fence, some overalls, a gun, because it's the U.S., and some Skittles. Like that's what this place is, okay? So Tractor Supply wants to attract farmers. They did $5.3 billion in revenue last year. I think they have 1,400 retail outlets. So they're going after farmers. Now let's divide and subdivide that audience, all right? If you divide it first, just one branch, you could go after commercial farmers or hobby farmers, okay? Let's go after hobby farmers, because if you were going to create content or inspire those commercial farmers to come in, you need a very different kind of content than the farmer that just on the weekend is doing something. So let's go down the hobby farmer tree. You could go for rural hobby farmers or suburban hobby farmers. Let's go down the suburban hobby farmer tree. Why? Because most of their retail outlets are near suburban areas. So we'll go down the suburban hobby farmer tree. Now you could create content and inspire demand for people that love agriculture. Like I'm going to grow some corn. I'm going to grow some tomatoes. I'm going to grill that up on the weekends and eat it. That you could do that. Or you might go after livestock. Like maybe I have a friend whose wife is really into horses, so they have 2 horses and a llama he accidentally bought at an auction. So this is what hobby farmers do. They're not really with it. So let's go down the livestock suburban hobby farmer tree. Now you could go after big livestock like those horses and the llama, or small livestock like rabbits or chickens. Now we're at the small hobby farmer suburban chicken guy, okay? And if you go down this tree far enough, you find a movement called backyard poultry. And at this intersection, you find the most amazing content and content creators. This is the Chicken Whisperer, okay? His name is Andy Schneider, and he calls himself the Chicken Whisperer. And Andy Schneider actually is pretty credible. He created a book called The Chicken Whisperer's Guide to Keeping Chickens. It is the #1 bestseller in his category. There is one other book for these people, so he outsold the other guy. But what makes it more interesting is he has an online radio show 4 days a week for 2 hours a day, live online, okay? He talks nothing about chickens, nothing but chickens, all this show. This is his schedule. He has a chicken doctor on every Monday. He has different guests from different magazines, different chicken experts on. He has a call-in segment where if you have a problem, you can call and talk to the chicken doctor. This is what he's built. 20,000 weekly listeners who listen on Blog Talk Radio. 20,000 weekly listeners. Now, that's not massive, but these people are unbelievably passionate about their backyard poultry and their chickens. He doesn't stop there, because he's not just a media company. He starts thinking about how can I get to the people where they live. So he goes to meetup.com. If you don't know meetup.com, it's worth looking into. But he basically sets up meetups in all the major metropolitan areas for backyard poultry enthusiasts to actually get together once a month. There are 2,000 people registered for this group in Austin. And about 300 of them get together every month to talk about their chickens. This is how powerful these meetup groups are. And that's when people start studying, this is really interesting. He starts a Facebook group where he talks about nothing but chicken all day long. You follow his feed, it's really crazy. All chicken, all day. He has a magazine that comes out quarterly, a print magazine and a digital version. The print magazine has 60,000 subscribers who pay for a subscription to the Chicken Whisperer magazine. That is a media company. This is how he thinks. Very niche content, obviously. And this is where Tractor Supply gets interested. Hey, would you be interested in fixing our crappy content that's on our website and creating some videos for us that are all about how to raise your own backyard poultry? And he says, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do that. Now he has an underwriter, not for creating the content or just for the audience, but for actually creating content that helps people inspire the new chicken lovers out there. And then they say, hey, on our Facebook group, people are asking if you'll come to Chick Days. Now, Chick Days happen every Easter, where you go in and it's kind of like the fish. You buy the $2.99 little baby chicken, and then you have to keep that thing alive for 10 years. So Chick Days is their way of getting people excited about the Easter chickens. And they start saying, well, can the Chicken Whisperer come? And he says, sure, I'll come to a few stores. I'll go on a tour. I'd love to meet my fans. And they go crazy for this. They start putting up signs in the stores. In fact, if you go to a Tractor Supply anywhere in the U.S., Monday through Thursday, from noon to 2 Eastern, you hear the Chicken Whisperer radio show in the store on their radio, okay? That's how integrated into the brand he's become, as a huge part of the way they get new people inspired to raise chickens. And do people show up for these things? Yeah, look, this is Anderson, South Carolina. He gets 100 people packed into the back of the store. And all of a sudden, Tractor Supply gets concerned. This is a lot of people taking up a lot of retail space. So let's put them in a different venue. So they rent halls now for him to come to, because these events are so popular. And it's his influencers inviting people to come meet the Chicken Whisperer himself. And does it work? If you think about Tractor Supply's perspective, just for the chicken feed alone and the 40 stores he visits, it's about $8.7 million in just chicken feed alone every year. And most of these people have never been to a Tractor Supply. They're now new, loyal customers of a Tractor Supply they had never set foot in before the Chicken Whisperer invited them there. This is getting rich by targeting a niche. You never would find this audience if you weren't willing to dive deep enough down the tree to go to the backyard poultry, chicken-loving, small livestock-owning, suburban hobby farmer, right? That's deep. I want you to explore your niches. Sorry, I said niches too many times there. I want you to explore your niches. I want you to find a node and commit to that audience. I want you to stop trying to be everything to everyone. Even if you think you've got a great niche, there are opportunities even deeper. Who is your Chicken Whisperer? I want you to start thinking like the Chicken Whisperer. He doesn't think he's building a media company. He thinks he's built a great company. He's even talking about his own products, just like Lauren Luke. All right, secret number 2, I want you to exploit content holes. Exploit content holes. Now, I learned about content holes in 1993, and this was, remember in the beginning I was telling you about that cable television explosion in the US? Well, this is the 200-channel universe talk time. Do you guys remember this? When everyone was like, in the future, we will have 200 channels, and it's going to just be a crazy explosion of content. I remember having those conversations very early on, and in Columbia, South Carolina, they were having the same conversations about all this new content coming down the channel. And this guy, Dale Ordine, ran the Columbia Cablevision operation right there in Columbia, South Carolina. And he was one of these test bed markets where if a cable company wanted to try something out new, they would send it to Columbia and he would try it out. So Dale Ordine gets the new channel, Sci-Fi Channel, okay? It's basically going to be Star Trek reruns, but he's very excited about it. And at the time, it was a premium network. You had to pay $5 extra a month to get the Sci-Fi Channel. No one had ever seen it before. And he got a bunch of people to sign up for this thing. They were very excited about it. And as he's about to put it live, he gets a call from the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and they say, hey, Dale, don't put it live yet. We've had some paperwork problems. We can't put it up. It's going to take about 6 weeks. I'm really sorry. And Dale's panicked because he's like, I've got these Star Trek freaks that are going to call our customer service line, and they're going to be angry that they can't watch it. It's supposed to go live at 8 o'clock tonight. He doesn't know what to do, so he takes a camera from his studio and rolls it into his office where he has a fish tank, and he just starts streaming a picture of a fish tank on the blank Sci-Fi Channel. And he puts a little scrolling message that says, I'm sorry, the Sci-Fi Channel's launch has been delayed. Please call our customer service or fax us, because this was the old days where you could fax stuff, and we will issue you a refund for the month, but it'll be back up in 6 weeks. This goes on for not 6 weeks, 6 months, and no one called to complain. 0 complaints. So he's thinking, well, no one wants the Sci-Fi Network. This is going to be a failure. He finally gets the approval on that 6-month mark to put the Sci-Fi Channel live. He puts it live on a Friday night, goes home for the weekend, and he comes back on Monday morning. The answering machine is full. The fax machine is out of paper, and people are saying, I want my Fish TV back. I pay $5 a month for that, and it's my favorite channel on television. That network stayed on. Between Bravo and the Sci-Fi Network, they traded. During the day, you could watch it on the Sci-Fi Channel. At night, you could watch it on Bravo. And it was on for 6 years and generated millions of dollars in advertising revenue for Columbia Cablevision. This is a really smart approach. Now, we live in a world of 53 billion indexed web pages, and I want you to start thinking about those content holes. Let me quickly show you one. We've only got a few minutes left, sorry. But this is Jenny Doan, all right? And Jenny Doan is not a media company. She's from Hamilton, Missouri, which is in the middle of nowhere. And in 2010, her husband lost his job at the local newspaper. He was the printer there. And they start wondering, how are they going to make it in the future? And they sit down to talk about her quilt business. Now, she has a quilt business in this little town that was open like Wednesdays between 2 and 4. It was like that kind of quilt shop. And her son has a meeting with him and says, Jenny, look, if you're going to make the quilt business work, tell me how the logistics work. And she says, well, it takes 9 months to make one quilt. And he's like, well, this is not good. She says, well, I have this idea of we could create quick quilts, which I can create in 1 day. And he's like, that's genius. Let's do that. And she's like, well, no one knows what a quick quilt is. And they start having a meeting, and they talk all through what is quick quilting. Now, at the time, there were tens of thousands of YouTube videos on how to quilt. None of them were focused on quick quilting. So her son, Al, says, why don't we actually start creating quick quilting tutorials online and teach people how to quick quilt? And Jenny says, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll give it a shot. And they go online, and they create a quick quilting tutorial. Now, let me play you one of her very early ones, okay? She's doing these once a week. She commits to doing a quick quilting tour.
Hi, I'm Jenny from Missouri Star Quilt Company. Welcome to our Beginner Block series. Today we're going to learn how to make a 4-patch. This is an easy and versatile block and you'll...
Riveting, right? You guys are like, wow, she's good. Okay, she grew into becoming much more personable. She's a little angry, I think, in this video, because Al was behind the camera going, can we try it again? Like, it's too technical. So she starts teaching people how to quick quilt, make a quilt in a day, and all of a sudden she has thousands of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. She has 240,000 subscribers today. Her average video is viewed, basically 63% of everyone who subscribes watches the video every single week. That's a relationship. Let me play just a little bit of one of her later ones. This is what Jenny's turned into.
Hi, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. I can't even tell you how excited I am to show you this quilt. First of all, I love the bear paw. It's one of those patterns that is traditional and awesome, and I love it, but it's a lot of...
You can tell she's way better, right? Look, people stopped caring about quick quilting, and they just fell in love with Jenny. In fact, they noticed that if they said watch more quick quilting tutorials at the end of the video, no one watched any. But if they put watch more Jenny, people watched more Jenny. Hours of Jenny. How do people watch this? They sit down with their sewing machine, and they start watching it and quilting at the exact same time. She inspires people to go quilt. People from all over the country fall in love with these videos, and she's never stopped creating them since 2011. She's built a really great business in the middle of nowhere. Hamilton, Missouri is a small little town. Oh my Lord, I've been there. And it inspires people to go visit the town. Abigail Lemon here is from New York. She's not your typical quilter. When I think quilter, I think like my grandmother might quilt. No, she actually is a young woman who got in her car and drove to Hamilton, Missouri to meet Jenny Doan because Jenny Doan had built a relationship with her through content. You can go online and buy this stuff, right? She's created an online store where you can buy the pre-cut fabrics and actually get this stuff. They've created a beautiful store downtown. You can go into the store now and meet Jenny and take a class from Jenny Doan. Not only that, she's actually now the largest employer in the county. She has 100 full-time employees. She bought 17 buildings in downtown. She created a hotel called the Sew and Stay. She has 2 restaurants, one of which is for guys that are dragged there by their wives. She has 5 quilting stores, 50,000 visitors a year, and a $30 million a year business humming because of the media she creates. I want you to get rich by targeting a niche just like her. I want you to find those content opportunities, exploit content holes. She found quick quilting a content hole. What's your fish TV? All right, we're going to go quickly through the last 3. I'm going to show you how to attach talent quickly. You have to attach talent to content brands, okay? You have to have a person that powers it. Here's a magazine called Texas Monthly from Dallas, and they're a traditional city and regional publication that creates great content every single month. It looks like any city and regional magazine, but they noticed that people love the barbecue content, and they actually decided they were going to create a Texas Monthly barbecue platform where everything was going to be barbecue all the time because it would look like an opportunity, but they had no person to power this on their staff. They had no barbecue editor. So they found a guy who was blogging, he was an architect named Daniel Vaughn, and said, would you like to be the editor-in-chief of Texas Monthly Barbecue? Quit your architecture job and do this. And the guy was like, hell yeah, like eat barbecue? So he did it. Texas Monthly hired the world's first barbecue editor, and he started creating content on a regular basis. Now, what's interesting about this is he had a blog already, and big people like Anthony Bourdain loved his blog. And all of a sudden, they're leveraging the audience he had created to actually build the Barbecue Snob brand and Texas Monthly Barbecue into something really, really special. Today, their revenue stream isn't just advertising, although they do have advertising for Texas Monthly Barbecue. They actually have a huge amount of events that leverage his audience. Just on Twitter, it's 23,500 people from around the country. It's no longer just Texas, which is actually, by the way, 18% of the total Texas Monthly audience on Twitter. So they've come up with a really smart way to leverage his brand and turn it into something really special. Are you guys doing okay? I'm just going to, I need to wrap up because we got 4 minutes left. Daniel Vaughn is actually the vehicle for success for this. So if we're going to actually drive new revenue in the next decade, it has to be people-powered. I don't care if you create video games or music. It doesn't matter if you're a production company or a publisher. I want you to think about the people that power that success. Think like a talent agent, and it'll help you think about those new revenue models and the new revenue streams that might be there. So what if we attached talent to the media we create? Who should power your brand is a really important question. All right, let's talk about the last secret. Secret number 4. I want you to start small and think big. In this kind of media climate, we can move really fast to test ideas and build content brands before we even know they're a content brand. This is a woman named Rin, who in 2007 started texting her friends every morning a 200-character story on her phone as she was going to school. She was in high school. And she started texting just one plot point every single day. And her friends started saying, I love this story. Can you send it to me? And all of a sudden, she had friends of friends of friends, thousands of people subscribing and forwarding these texts every day. And then she decided, well, I should build a platform for this. And she started texting a novel every single day in 200 characters. It's called Keitai Shotsu. Somebody can help me say it correctly, hopefully. But Rin started texting these cell phone novels that all of a sudden became a thing. There were other authors who started writing them. This is the first best-selling book she had. It's a print book called Deep Love. Now imagine if you came into the story halfway through, you missed the beginning. And they actually print them in the format of a little cell phone novel with all the emoticons and text language and everything with it. And I don't learn about this stuff by meeting her. I just read the New York Times. These little nuggets of small ideas that turn into big media properties are out there. I want you to look for them. Maybe you've seen Text from a Dog. This is something that started small on Tumblr. And the dog starts texting every single day, stuff like this. You got a letter. That's from the dog. The owner says, okay. From the bank, I think. Okay. And the dog says, tasted important. That dog, Text from a Dog, has a best-selling book in the UK called Text from a Dog. And he goes on speaking circuit and has a whole brand built around Text from a Dog. I want you to start small and think big. Look, I want you to make 2016 the year of no regrets. I want you to think like a company, not a media company. I want you to get rich by targeting a niche, exploit those content holes, attach talent to the stuff you're creating. Start small, think big, like Lauren Luke, who didn't think she was creating a media company that sells makeup. She wanted a makeup company, and she needed the media to do it. Think like a television executive. Build content brands. Have a great digital dialogue today. I'll be around all day. Thank you, guys. You've been Drewed. Thanks, Terry.
Wow. That was amazing. I'm exhausted. Reminds me back in 1986 when I started a podcast called Inside PR.
Yeah.
Half-hour weekly show about the world of public relations. And that show still is going today, almost 10 years later. We had a very small audience, but we did that, pick a niche. And you couldn't get a show about public relations on a major radio station or TV station, so we created the niche. So
that's great.
Brilliant message. We have a couple of minutes, because true to form, Drew went slightly over.
Sorry.
But I mean, did we not want him to go over? There are a couple of questions we can, yes, we'll start here. Oh, let's wait for the microphone.
Wait for the mic, because the people on the web can't hear you.
That's right. There it is.
Don't forget to say your name.
Hi, I'm Kit Redmond, and I work for a company called, I own it, called RTR Media.
Okay.
And my question is about ownership.
Yeah.
You're talking about a people-powered brand and to think like a company versus a media company.
Yeah.
How important is it to own 100% of the content and the merch versus partnering strategically?
Great question. I think it's important that you own 100% of the content brand. From an intellectual property standpoint, I mean, I think it should be something you've conceived of and need power, talent to power. But I don't think there's anything wrong with setting up a joint venture, especially when you're getting started, to help build those things. I mean, Rachel Ray, do you guys know Rachel Ray? Rachel Ray used to work for a little grocery store in upstate New York, and she approached the television station and said, I would like to do a segment every week on the news that's 30-minute meals, and they said, let's try it, and 30-minute meals was her hook and her idea, and I think she brought it to the Food Network, so she owns that idea. But I don't think there's anything wrong with you finding talent who maybe doesn't have a hook and doesn't have a content brand yet, and you can help foster and build that. I think it's really important that you own the content brand. Sure.
Maybe two more.
Two more.
We'll do one side and then this side. So
sure.
How about you, since you're close to the mic?
Hi, Sharon McCauley,
Hi, Sharon.
and I'm a publishing consultant. This is a related question. I've seen situations where a brand like Texas Monthly has fostered that talent, and then that talent leaves and takes that that following and that brand equity with him or her.
Yeah.
So, what's your recommendation around managing that situation or trying to foresee that?
Yeah, it's a great question, by the way, Sharon. So similar, I think if you think like a television producer, you have to own the format and the show Bible. Like it has to be yours. The mechanics of how, whatever content you're creating has to be owned by the publisher in this case. And I think you're looking to leverage talent in the right kind of relationship designed to foster their long-term goals. And I think that's the major problem most of us as publishers or media companies have with talent. We're good at inviting them in and helping build a brand around exactly what they're good at. But when you're a talent like even Daniel Vaughn, the barbecue guy, you start saying, this has been great and I'm happy doing the blog, but I wish we could do X, Y, and Z. And most publishers and media companies say, hey, look, maybe eventually, but just keep doing what you're doing. We're driving good revenue. You've got to actually embrace that and say, we're going to do it. How do we make your barbecue movie? He has a barbecue book. And that's what MS Communications did really well. They said, you want to make a barbecue book? Let's make a barbecue book. You want to try a podcast? Let's try the podcast. You've got to foster their aspirations and really understand that you're going to help them become as big as they want to be. It's when they feel stifled that it doesn't work. There's actually a good quick story. The Boston Globe took a guy who was a football blogger, American football blogger for the Patriots, bought his company because he had a blog that was more popular than the sports pages of the Boston Globe. They basically, as soon as they bought it, they basically sat him in a corner and said, keep doing what you're doing. And he wanted something bigger. So when ESPN came to town and said, we want to create an ESPN Boston, they took this kid and said, hey, what do you want? And he said, I want a radio show. I want TV exposure. They said, you've got it. And all of a sudden he left, took his audience with him, even though he'd sold the brand. And now ESPN Boston is much bigger than Boston.com. So foster their aspirations, but own the brand.
Great. One more question over this side. Anyone?
This side? No one has. They have to pee.
Settle down. There's time for everyone. No? Okay. We'll go back to this side. Was there one more?
Well, any more?
Okay. Well, why don't we call it a day? Andrew, that was amazing.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. I'll be around.